What is up, everybody? How are you doing today? John, how are you doing today?
Doing absolutely wonderful with all this research we've been doing. I went 6-7 this weekend.
Nice.
Won 6 of my leagues. Lost one of them. Really close game in the second one. Hopefully, we're recording right now, middle of the Broncos game. Towards the end of it, it's actually halftime right now. If Melvin Gordon can get 5 more fumbles and no more yards, I can win all 7.
He'll beat me. He plays me this week, and I currently have Melvin Gordon. I'm beating him by 5 points, and I'm sorry, John. I think it's a loss for you.
It's probably, but
it was close though.
There's a whole season for a reason. It's not just a 1 week thing. And
I think that's the biggest thing about week 1. Don't tilt. Don't get upset. Don't overthink it. Don't overhype.
Don't overreact. Don't underreact.
You drafted your players. You listened to us. You drafted your players to do what they're going to do through the season. And just because, i.e., Austin Eckler didn't perform the way he should have, doesn't mean trade him away for cheap just don't overreact. Yeah. He'll be fine. Everybody will be fine. We're all going to be fine.
Everyone has good games. Everyone has bad games. It just averages out throughout the year. And for the people that aren't automatically started, it's just picking those games when they're going to be good.
Yep. So, anyways, welcome to today's show. We have an injury recap, a whole week 1 recap, and then we've got waiver wires in as well. The best players out there on the waiver that you guys need to pick up ASAP. But before we get into that, let's just introduce our beer of the day. It is the Vanilla Porter from Breckenridge Brewery out of Colorado.
Shout out Colorado.
Shout out. Pretty good. You get that vanilla.
Oh, that's super sweet.
Mm-hmm. Quite sweet. Quite sweet. So.
Oh, really nice.
Yeah.
Really clean.
But, John, I've got some bad news for me, good news for you.
I know. I'm looking at it right now. Big money.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations,
to
John.
Myself.
I'll shake your hand like a man.
There's COVID right now. We're not supposed to be doing that. I'll give you an elbow bump.
Oh, shut up.
But no, realistically, we did take a little wager on whether or not James Robinson or Leonard Fournette would have a better week 1.
I took
Leonard. Turns out James Robinson, even though not great, was able to outproduce Leonard Fournette's lack of opportunity.
Yep.
Which is just reason I wasn't feeling Leonard. So glad to take on that first win.
We'll write that down.
Have that first spin under my belt. Excited for that. At least I won something with you this weekend.
Yay. So we'll write that down. And like we said at the beginning, or when we announced the Wheel of Failure, send in your recommendations for punishments. We've already got a couple, including the chip. The hot chip.
The hot chip?
Yeah,
oh,
so
fun.
That's a good one. So, but anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a long, packed show for you. So let's get into it. Let's jump into the injuries real quick just to go over those and what happened this week. Michael Thomas, first of all, got rolled up on one of the last plays of the game, has a sprained ankle. He's going to be day-to-day, I believe, and just keep an eye out for that. I know he did come out and say that, he's wanting to play this week, but the Saints, they're going to evaluate him and kind of see where they can take it from there. Even before the sprained ankle, it wasn't pretty for him.
He wasn't really getting too much work. You almost want to think that whoever went to hit him like that might have started him this week and might have had some pent-up aggression built up.
Well, it was his offensive lineman, so I don't think so.
It happens. But no, as you just mentioned, he does want to play this week coming up. And as much as we'd like to be able to take a player's word on their own injuries, someone else who went down this week, Le'Veon Bell, with a hamstring injury, tweeted out just days before the season start, "There's nothing wrong with my hamstring."
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he didn't feel it. Maybe he didn't think so. But apparently there was something going on that was leading up to it. Just remember, injuries happen.
Yep. Yes, they do. And I believe he is going to be out a couple weeks, they said.
Yeah, I believed it was up to 6 weeks.
Yeah, Adam Gase came out and said a couple weeks. So who knows what that timetable could be? Hamstrings are very easy to re-injure. We saw a lot of hamstring injuries this week.
We did.
Yep, including Devontae Parker. Missed pretty much all the second half of the Dolphins-Patriots game. He practiced in full on Friday, even after he supposedly tweaked his hamstring. Practiced in full on Friday. Kind of gave us a little bit of confidence, but
Yep.
didn't do it.
Part of the reason I was fading from him slightly come Saturday and Sunday just due to that injury update. But sad to see it. He did finish one catch short of his yardage spread, which lost it all.
Yep, lost it all. Lost it all. We're starting that soon. So, another big blow to the Cowboys. Blake Jarwin.
Our guy.
I'm crying.
Someone we were really excited to go out and see this year.
If you're watching on YouTube, I've got tears.
They're kind of cute. But no, for real, Blake Jarwin was someone we were really hyped up about. It's really sad to see him go.
Yeah.
And miss a bunch of time due to that injury.
Now, are you going to pick up Dalton Schultz?
No, I'm going to stay away from even when Blake was in there, he wasn't getting that target share. They have 3 amazing receivers. They've got one of the best running backs in the NFL. No.
Yeah, I'm staying away from Dalton Schultz. No need to at this point, unless one of those receivers goes down or something like that. Then potentially, but
or maybe if we start seeing flashes, he'll be a good waiver pickup then. But for now,
no. Dave Njoku, another guy. He is on the IR, so he'll miss, I believe, 3 weeks. So wasn't really doing too much during the game. Neither were the rest of the Browns. Austin Hooper only finished with 2 targets, and it just wasn't pretty there in Cleveland.
No, Cleveland, as we'll talk about later, did not have the best week, and no one really got a huge opportunity there for huge stud numbers. David Njoku did get a good amount of looks, more than you were expecting, especially with the amount of money they spent on Austin Hooper this year. So,
did you see that throw by Drew Lock?
Let's not talk about it. The game's not over yet.
All right. Anyways, George Kittle did have it looked pretty bad. Did you see the replay on that?
No, I missed it.
It looked bad. His leg got caught underneath the defender. It looks like it hyperextended a bit, or extended a bit. So, but luckily it was only a knee sprain. He did come back and play the remainder of the game, or I believe the late second half of the game, and they're going to monitor him and kind of progress through the week. He wants to play, of course. He's a badass, so he could, but definitely keep an eye out on him. James Conner only ran the ball 6 times and unfortunately sprained his ankle. He is going to be evaluated this week for the Steelers. Benny Snell played pretty well.
Yeah,
Benny Snell played pretty well.
He stepped into a nice role for himself this week and showed some really good flashes. He passed the eye test for me. I know he's someone that you picked up in one of the leagues that we're co-managing, and I was a little questionable about it at first, but after watching him play today, I'm really glad you did, because now we don't have to fight for him.
Yep, and the spinner in his grill or his mouth guard is pretty dope too, so that's an added bonus. And then, unfortunately, Marlon Mack did tear his Achilles, so he is out the remainder of the season. Frank Reich did say that Jonathan Taylor is going to be the starting running back. However, Nyheim Hines is going to have a role there as well. Nyheim Hines, probably the waiver pickup of the week if he is not, or if he's on your waivers. So, but we'll get into that a little bit later. John, one other thing, keep an eye out for Chris Godwin. I haven't seen any updates. He did have like a head injury and walked off the field, but I haven't seen any updates. John hasn't either. So, just keep an eye out for that.
Especially with the practices coming up this week.
Yep. So, anyways, those are the updated injuries. There are a ton more on offense, defense, unfortunately. Some O-linemen and whatnot, but those are our, biggest fantasy relevant impact. So, anyways, let's move on to our weekend recap. Baby, oh my gosh, it was week 1. I loved it.
It was overwhelming at first. There was so many games on that you're just looking from TV to TV to TV to TV. And then as soon as you look away, something else just happened.
Yeah.
I did feel a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, quite a bit.
It was a great feeling though.
Yeah.
I was so happy.
I know. As soon as this game's over, I'm gonna be depressed for like 2 days.
Yeah,
Thursday night football.
It's not too far away, and luckily we do enough on the off time that we keep our heads involved in football.
That is true.
But no, we did have a lot of really great games, a lot of huge upsets, a lot of holy craps, including what happened with the Washington football team this week.
That was a pretty big holy crap.
And something that was great to see was the Seahawks did come out and defeat the Atlanta Falcons.
In Seattle.
In Seattle, it was 38 Seahawks, 25 Falcons, and Russell Wilson had himself a game.
Boy.
Throwing for 4 touchdowns, 2 of them going to Chris Carson, one finding DK Metcalf, and one ending up to Greg Olsen, going 31 for 35, extremely accurate, 322 yards. You drafted Russell Wilson extremely early. He's an auto play for you, so he worked out extremely well, finishing as the quarterback 2, I believe.
Boy, yep.
Yeah. Now coming up next, Chris Carson in that running back room put up a huge point total.
He did indeed.
But something that you're going to look at is that was on 2 touchdowns with only 6 carries.
2 rushing touchdowns. And he also had 6 receptions and 6 targets. So, or I'm sorry, yeah.
They were receiving touchdowns.
Receiving touchdowns. So, one interesting fact that we, if he hadn't have scored, and I've been talking about this all day with a few people, but if he hadn't have scored, the biggest thing that would have came out of this game is, wow, Carlos Hyde outran him in the touches total. Carlos Hyde had 7 carries compared to Chris Carson's 6. Obviously, Chris Carson was more involved in the passing game, so that is going to give him that added bonus. But we've been saying it all offseason. I do think that Carlos Hyde is going to take away some carries from Chris Carson and in turn hurting his fantasy value.
Yeah, I think it's just going to cap him and limit his potential and his ceiling. Obviously, this week he got really, I don't want to say lucky, but touchdowns is something that's not predictable. And so when a bulk of your point total comes from touchdowns, unless you're a huge body receiver where that's your job, you're not going to be expecting that week in, week out. If anything, you're probably going to be seeing a pretty decent regression in Chris Carson coming up in this next week, just because, again, those touchdowns, though repeatable, are not likely. And it's all about opportunity. That 6 carries does not say a lot for him. Yeah,
he had a total of 2 receiving touchdowns last year. So
he's already
capped out.
Yeah, no more. But both Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf finished with 8 targets. Tyler Lockett catching all 8 of them, and DK Metcalf only getting 4. But both finishing with just over 90 yards, and DK getting a touchdown in the end zone.
37-yard.
37-yard, nice, beautiful pass from Russell Wilson.
Really, on 4th and 1.
Yeah, really happy to see them both being utilized in an equal fashion with their skill sets being maximized, DK being that deep ball and Tyler Lockett being that security blanket. I think that both of them are going to find a lot more success at a not mediocre, but just slightly more than average level, but very consistently with some high upside games.
Definitely. Both of them have that high upside potential. So great starts coming up in the next few weeks. Greg Olsen did find the end zone on one of his 4 catches. I'm not going to get him out on the waiver wire. There's plenty of other targets or tight ends that you can stream out there, and we will get to that a little bit later. So moving on to the Falcons, Matt Ryan had a day, 450 passing yards, 54 passing attempts. That's what we expected. That offense is based around the passing game. And Julio, Calvin, Russell Gage all had phenomenal fantasy weeks, especially Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, all 3 of them were able to finish with over 100 yards between the 3 of them. Russell Gage getting 9 catches on 12 targets. Someone you're going to be looking for possibly on a deep league waiver wire. He's only being owned in 3.8% of leagues. So someone that could be really valuable, especially in this offense that we're talking about. A lot of people have talked about how Dallas could be a situation where you could see 3 1,000-yard receivers.
Could be Atlanta.
We just saw a situation where if this is repeatable 16 times, you've got 3 1,600-yard receivers.
Yeah.
But no, Russell Gage, absolute great. Julio Jones, 150 yards, did really well. Just wasn't able to find that end zone again, which is something you see from him. But that stat line that you're getting from him is pretty consistent. Maybe not 150 yards, but he's getting the targets and he's getting a high yardage total. With those touchdowns being the games those touchdowns will win you your week.
Right.
So really nice to see that Julio's still being great. And then Calvin Ridley coming in with 2 touchdowns, being that touchdown machine.
130 yards.
Starting right back up where he left off last season. Really happy to see it happen because I think it's something that you're going to be seeing a lot of.
That's why he's one of our favorite go-to guys during the draft, man.
And something to keep in mind, the Falcons were playing against the Seahawks.
Good secondary.
They an amazing secondary. So possibly just due to the pure volume that Matt Ryan's been throwing out, possibly just due to the fact that the Seahawks were putting up so many points that they got so much opportunity. But really happy for this Falcons receiving core, and I like them next week going into it.
It's pretty neat that it was even across the board. They all got 12 targets.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So Hayden Hurst didn't do really what we thought he would do, and I think in part that was due to Russell Gage being more involved in the passing game than before. So I think that that kind of contributed to what he was, or why he had the fantasy finish he did. But he will give you some games through the week. But I don't think that he's going to be as consistent or near consistent as Austin Hooper was, which is something we've been saying all offseason. And then, of course, Todd Gurley. He had a respectable day. He did find the end zone, 14 carries, 56 yards. That touchdown really did bump him up. And he did see the targets. He did have five targets, which was pretty nice, but he only caught 2 of those for 1 receiving yard.
Yeah, again, I kind of see him right with this stat line as touchdown dependent. You take that touchdown away from him and find another person to get into the end zone. Mm-hmm. You're not using them, and you're actually talking about cutting to trading them at this point, being that we're not sure what's going to happen with him. There's just too much of a high-powered receiver, too many high-powered receivers, and someone that likes to get the ball downfield rather than letting their players work upfield.
Right.
So just, again, staying away from Todd Gurley, a little bit of confirmation bias. But glad to see him not too amazing, especially when we've been telling you guys that he's not someone we're going to be spending any draft capital on.
Mm-hmm. So, anyways, moving on to Cleveland at Baltimore. Baltimore whooped the crap out of Cleveland, 38-6. Baker, oh man, he's rough. Did not show up very well. OBJ had 10 targets, only 2 receptions, and it wasn't pretty. I mean, I don't think it's his fault if you watch the game film. I mean, he's getting open. Baker's just not hitting him. And then, of course, Jarvis Landry, solid day overall, I believe. He
went 5 for 6 with 61 on 61 yards. So doing just enough. You obviously you weren't drafting Jarvis Landry to be the wide receiver one.
Flex,
More than likely, if you picked him up, you put him as a flex, or he wasn't even on your lineup. He's just sitting on your bench for now, waiting for you to see what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. We saw last year that he was someone that, with OBJ out, was able to come in and be really productive. And with OBJ taking the targets that he is now, Jarvis Landry was still able to put up a reasonable day, a solid flex day. In a half-point PPR league, he put up 11.1 points, mm-hmm. which is really great for a flex.
You're wanting that 10-point.
Yeah, you want that at least a 10. But last year he was still on 6 targets, able to put up like 16 points against Cincinnati, but that's on a touchdown. So, again, I think you're getting solid flex from Jarvis Landry week in, week out. So, nice to see.
Yeah, definitely. And then David Njoku was 3 for 3 for 50 yards and a touchdown. Really bumping him up there to 14 points in a half-point league. However, like we said at the beginning, he is going on IR. Something interesting in this game, Hooper was on the field for 77% of the snaps and didn't produce nearly as much. And Njoku was only on the field for 23% of the offensive snaps. So maybe it had to do with that connection.
Possibly.
That they had.
I mean, Njoku's been there for a little bit. Hooper's coming in from Atlanta, so maybe him and Baker don't really have it together. I mean, even if they do, Baker's only completing 53% of his passes this week. I'm not even happy if he throws it my way because there's only 50-50 chance it's going to be catchable. So just really, really shoddy on that Browns offense this week all the way around. Only real person that showed any sort of promise and at a low range is that Jarvis Landry. But then if you flip to the other side of it, Baltimore balled.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with Lamar Jackson there, you're expecting a lot from them. But obviously 38 points coming out of the team, coming out of Baltimore. J.K. Dobbins was able to find the end zone twice, only on 7 carries, not receiving any passes or any sort of pass targets. Mark Ingram getting 10 carries and Gus Edwards getting 4. Lamar Jackson had himself a normal quarterback day, not the rushing quarterback day that you expect from him. 7 carries for 45 yards, has him actually as 5th in the league for rushing yards as a quarterback, which, surprise, surprise for a lot of people. Did throw 25 passes, completed 25 of them, 275 yards, and did get those 3 touchdowns, keeping up that high touchdown percentage that he had last season. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's an auto start. If you drafted him, you're playing him. There's no way around it.
100%.
Someone that is sort of sneaky coming in from Baltimore this week was Willie Snead. He did get 4 catches, kind of got a boost from a touchdown, but did finish with 64 yards, just with that point total putting him just above everyone's favorite Marquise Brown, who did end up getting 6 targets. So not much more, but he was able to break that 100-yard mark.
Yeah, which is, kind of expected. He is that team's, number one, and I think that's if he had a touchdown, he would have had a great game. He would have gone from that, good game to a great game. J.K. Dobbins finished pretty well.
Yeah, those 2 touchdowns, absolutely amazing. Didn't get a whole lot of carries.
7
but no one else really did.
Yeah, Mark Ingram only had 10.
Yeah, so, I mean, solid day, especially for a rookie week 1. You can only expect so much from him. And being able to find the end zone twice, if you drafted him in a best ball league, because I'm assuming that's the only place that most people actually played him this week, I'm sure he did a lot for you.
Mm-hmm. That's why, like I said, that's why he's one of my must-haves. I think it's only going to get better from throughout the season. But overall, then of course Mark Andrews doing Mark Andrews things, finishes tight end 1, 5 catches for 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. Freaking amazing. Did you see the one-handed catch he had in the end zone? Yeah, baller. So Mark Andrews, another must-start tight end week in and week out. So overall, the Ravens killed it. Not missing a beat from last year.
No, not at all.
So,
only thing they're missing is 2 tight ends, but they've make up for it with the additional running back.
Yeah. So, anyways, moving on to the Bills and Jets. The Jets were getting worked in the first half, 21-0, but they ended up bringing it to a little bit more of a respectable score, 27-17. Excuse me. Pretty much everybody. The Jets just look terrible all around, except for Jamison Crowder.
Yeah.
Who?
Sam Darnold was looking terrible for the entirety of the game. Even with those Jamison Crowder did finish with 7 catches on 13 targets. Even on those throws, Jamison Crowder was doing a lot of work to make them work, especially that just yards after catch. He did finish with 115 yards and 1 touchdown. Sam Darnold threw 21 for 35.
Yeah.
That's like
rough.
60%. Only completing 1 touchdown, did throw an interception, and did have a carry for 6 yards. So, that does something for him.
Mm-hmm.
It is sad to see, though. Le'Veon Bell only got 6 carries with 2 targets for 32 yards before going out with that hamstring injury.
Yep.
Frank Gore finished the game with 6 carries. And something that was going into the week was we were being told that it could be a 60-40 split. And I believe before Le'Veon got hurt and left the game, it was actually about a 60-40 split. I think it was 3-2.
Yeah.
So even if when Bell comes back, I'm going to need to see him a game or 2 before I
put him in your lineup.
Actually put him in my lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone that I kind of went into the week slightly hot on was Chris Herndon. I thought maybe he could show what he showed back in 2017 or 2018, I believe it was.
He got the targets.
He got the targets, but he got the fumbles too.
Did have the fumble.
He's got the fumbles. But not the yardage either.
Yeah,
no. Not a terrible place. He gave you like low-end streamable tight end numbers, but nothing to the point where I'm happy to have him or even have played him. and I'm cooling off completely.
Yep.
I didn't see anything I liked.
Yeah, me either. So, I mean, and it was a bad matchup though. The Bills defense is solid defense, so he is going to be streamable, I think, down the road because he is getting that target share, which is nice, but just not a great game for him. Moving on to the Bills, Josh Allen. He had 57 rushing yards, 14 carries, and a touchdown. He also threw the ball 46 times, completed 33 of those, 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. But he did have 2 fumbles, unfortunately, which ended up hurting him. Overall, had a great day, though. Just those fumbles hurt him. Zach Moss and Devin Singletary both had 9 carries. Zach Moss did have 4 targets, 3 receptions, compared to Singletary's 7 targets. So Singletary was used a little bit more there in the passing game. However, Zach Moss did have the receiving touchdown, which is kind of funny. So Zach Moss, we were saying it, good play. That backfield's a little scary though for me right now, not knowing who's going to really take over that role. I think it's going to be a lot like this moving forward. John Brown, great game. 1 touchdown, 70 yards on 10 targets and 6 receptions. So he's definitely somebody to pick up on the waiver wire. He's only, he's 71% owned, correct?
Yeah, 71% owned.
So he's out there in some leagues, not a lot.
He's going to be one of these people where I'm personally going to say, do not overreact. I believe a majority of his yards came on a one pass touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Take away that touchdown, you're a completely different game. You're not happy with playing him at all. So he did get a huge target share. He got 10 targets, which was nice to see. Stephon Diggs only got 9, but he did catch 8 of them.
I like his target share.
I like his target share a lot, but it's the target quality or the type of targets that he are getting are these deep balls that are going to be, he's going to get targets.
Make or break.
But they're not going to, they have to hit.
Right.
And if they do, awesome. But John Brown's kind of, and for me, always kind of been that like Walmart Tyreek Hill. He's speedy. He gets a deep ball. Doesn't have the consistency Tyreek Hill does in the mid game. But if he hits, he hits. And when he hits, it's big.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This week, he kind of hit. It didn't hit hard, but he hit.
Yeah, he's definitely a matchup play, seeing who they're playing. Obviously, the Jets lost Jamal Adams, so that over-the-top help wasn't there. So I like to have him on my team, depending upon the matchup. So, but overall, great game for him. And then Stephon Diggs had a pretty respectable week as well. Like you said, 9 targets, 86 yards, 8 receptions. So no touchdown, which would have put him over that 20-point game. Overall, great game, though, for him, especially in his first game with Josh Allen. So
yeah, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from him, but happy with what he got.
Right. Yep. So moving on to the Raiders at Panthers. The Raiders beat the Panthers 34-30.
On the back of Josh Jacobs.
Yep. So this game actually had the week 1's running back 1 and 2 in it. Josh Jacobs finished as the running back 1. CMC finished as the running back 2. Both are, ballers. Josh Jacobs really broke out, 3 touchdowns. And grabbing him late in the first round, you're feeling good about it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then something that was surprising to some people, he did end up with 6 targets.
Mm-hmm.
He led the wide receivers and the running back in targets. Something that was talked about. We saw a lot of the running backs just get cut and moved away from Las Vegas. I didn't think that it was going to happen. If it keeps up, awesome. He's just going to be he's going to go someone who's going to be the mid end of the running back ones to possibly, if not definitely, the top end.
Yep.
So you found a lot of value in him, and he's in must start in all situations at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Darren Waller, fantasy wise, didn't do tremendous. Not like we were used to seeing last year, but he did have 8 targets, 6 receptions for 45 yards. So a touchdown really would have helped that. But overall, glad he's still Derek Carr's favorite target. He led the team in targets, so very promising for him. I love Darren Waller this year. So, Teddy B, how do you think he did? What are your thoughts?
He didn't do terrible. He didn't I want to see more from him. I wasn't impressed. I didn't love him, but he didn't do terrible. He could have done better. I don't know how else to say it. It was really mediocre.
Yeah, he finished as a mid-tier quarterback too this week. He didn't turn the ball over, which was nice.
Yeah, it's always great.
And
they still lost.
Yeah, and they still lost. Yeah. But I mean, this is CMC's offense. You can tell.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
DJ Moore didn't really didn't live up to the hype.
No, not at all. That's someone that was really hyped up this entire offseason was DJ Moore.
He did have 9 targets though, which is nice to see. But he only caught 4 of those, which is really where and he caught him for 54 yards. So I mean, he had a pretty good yards per catch. I think the chemistry between him and Teddy B just have to get on the same page, and it'll be a good match for them. That just has to kind of click. Robbie Anderson. If you started him, which I don't think many people did, but if you did, good on you. Good on you, because he had a great game. He did have a 75-yard touchdown, which really helped him out. But he had 8 targets as well, 6 receptions, over 150 or at 115 yards. And he also got a 2-point conversion. Gave you a couple of extra points there.
Yeah. 7.1% started him this week in ESPN leagues. So, if like you said, if you started him, you probably won your week because he was more than likely just a flex for you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that 75-yard touchdown made his stat line. That touchdown adds a huge bonus to it. But, hey, it worked. It was obviously someone. He got those 8 targets from Teddy on 115 yards. You're looking at 5 catches for 40. So, still doing pretty well. Someone that's going to be highly picked up if he's on any waivers at the moment. People are going to be looking at him really hard. He's a risky play. He's a boomer bust kind of person.
Big time.
Maybe not in this offense, though. We'll see how they utilize him and what they do with them great look week 1.
Definitely. So, anyways, moving on to the Bears-Lions game. Shocker in the end. DeAndre Swift dropped a game-winning touchdown. That hurts. But the Bears beat the Lions 27-23. Is Mitch Trubisky ready to prove all the haters wrong?
I think so, man. I mean, he went out there this week and threw 3 touchdowns for 242 yards. No interceptions. No turnovers.
Yay. That's what they need.
That's exactly what they mean. I'm really happy to see it for him. Definitely someone that we're not going to be overreacting on. I don't think a lot of people will be. But I think that someone to keep an eye on, if you have a really deep league and you've got really empty roster spots, he might be worth picking up. I mean, he is a Pro Bowler. He just had quarterbacks have bad years.
Mm-hmm.
He had a decent 2018, terrible 2019.
Mm-hmm. I think it's coach too. Personally,
between the team itself is the defense is great. Their offense has been hit or miss pretty much. We're gonna have to see what he does. He did get to throw the ball 36 times, completing 20 of those passes, not having the highest completion percentage. He wasn't really able to feed both Anthony Miller and Allen Robinson in a way that was really expected. Allen Robinson getting 9 targets, only catching 5 of them for 74 yards. And then Anthony Miller getting the go-ahead touchdown on one of his 6 targets, finishing with 76. Not what I wanted. I was really expecting Allen Robinson to be not just more of a target holder, but a yardage holder,
mm-hmm.
and being more of a touchdown threat. With him finding the end zone with Jimmy Graham, it kind of hurt me.
Yeah.
It kind of really hurt.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great red zone target. He always has been. So, good to have him on that team. Another thing I like is David Montgomery. He averaged 4.9 yards carry, and he was coming into this game hurt. So he only got 13 carries. If they can keep that pace up and give him more work, I think he could be in for a pretty solid fantasy year. So solid for what he did and the opportunity he got. He also saw 3 receptions, only caught 1 of them for 10 yards. They drafted him to be that workhorse back that got rid of Jordan Howard, somebody who can catch the ball as well as, running up the middle. So is going to, as long as he can get healthy again, I think, or stay healthy, he will produce pretty well for the Chicago Bears. Now, on the other side, Matt Stafford, he needs Kenny Golladay, man. He needs Kenny Golladay. He did throw an interception, 42 attempts, just throwing for 3 yards short of 300, and he did have 5 carries for 23 yards as well. 1 touchdown. Overall, not great. You can tell he needs help. They were missing Kenny Golladay, but T.J. Hawkinson stepped up. Danny Amendola, I've said it all offseason. He's going to be that nice, easy throw for Matt to make. He had 7 targets and 5 receptions for 81 yards. So a solid fantasy finish there for him. Get in a half-point league, got 13.10 or 13.1 points. Marvin Jones didn't really do what we expected, unfortunately. I think that he also hurt with Kenny being
Golladay
gone.
Not being there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Quintez Cephas, he had 10 targets. Ton of targets.
Yeah, got absolutely lit up on the field, but wasn't able to catch any of them.
No.
That was one of the, when he was drafted in the combine, one of his concerns was he has smaller hands, so that dropping the ball was something they were really concerned about, and I guess that kind of happened. But I really do think, like you were just saying, Marvin Jones did kind of get really hurt by the fact that Kenny Golladay wasn't there. Marvin Jones hasn't proven recently to be a solid wide receiver 1 with no one else to be a huge threat. He needs a little bit of pressure taken off of him. But I do think that with Kenny Golladay coming back, you will see an uptick in Matt Stafford. He had a 2.3% touchdown percentage this week, which as compared to his season in 2019, the half season that he had, and he's 6.5, I believe it was. So maybe just balancing it out over the long term, maybe catching up for how well he did last season. But I don't think this is what you're going to be expecting from him in the long term. I would like to say that with Kenny Golladay coming back, it will open up the field for him a lot more, and not playing against that Bears defense, which it's the Bears defense. The Bears have had a great defense for years. They continue to have it. It's slowly deteriorating. They keep losing pieces, but they're still a great team. Might just have been the matchup for them.
Yeah. Definitely. So another guy to go grab, like we were saying, though, is also T.J. Hawkinson. He's only owned in, what was it?
71%?
Ooh, I lost it. We'll talk about it later. But
71.9%.
T.J. Hawkinson.
Mm-hmm.
So another great tight end to have. He's not in one of our leagues, so we're going to grab him. Moving on to the Colts-Jags game. The Jags upset the Colts 27-20.
On a comeback.
Yeah.
That Minshew Mania game-winning drive saw a lot of ball getting tossed around. Someone that I personally drafted years ago, dropped him, picked him back up, dropped him, have completely written him off of my life. It's going to be Keelan Cole. Actually got himself a touchdown and made himself slightly relevant, along with DJ Chark getting a touchdown, his day being saved by that touchdown. And Laviska Shenault even himself got a touchdown with Minshew Mania throwing himself 3 of them. So I think that the Jags absolutely showed that their offense can be potent, that they can move the ball downfield, and that, Minshew went 19 for 20. He's an accurate quarterback. James Robinson was someone that we picked up off the waiver wires, or I picked up off waiver wires expecting a little bit from it. We did have that, as we talked about, that show bet.
Mm-hmm.
Put up 16 carries and got 62 yards. Ended the game with 1 reception for 28 yards, with Chris Thompson only getting the game for two targets. Other than that, not doing much more. Really, really nice to see. A lot of people might be hyping up Keelan Cole just based off of his point total this week. He went 5 for 5, 47 yards with a touchdown. Very accurate. Maybe pick him up. Personally, I'm going to stay away from him.
Yep.
There's Laviska Shenault, who, again, is more than likely undrafted in most leagues unless you're deeper. So if you're going to be picking up anyone from that team, it would more than likely be Laviska. And personally, I just see that ball getting tossed around in any direction with whoever's open, and the main goal of that team is just to win and make a name for themselves.
Yep. And going to the Colts, Phillip Rivers did Phillip Rivers things. He threw 2 interceptions, but threw for over 360 yards. Marlon Mack, unfortunately, like we said at the beginning, he did tear his Achilles. Nyheim Hines really made a name for himself, had a great week, finished top 5 this week in running backs, and probably if he's out on your waiver, the best fantasy pickup this week, especially with Marlon Mack being gone. Like we said, Jonathan Taylor is going to be the team starting running back, so another great option for the weeks to come. But I do think that Hines will still see a solid role in that offense. One of my favorite players coming out of this game was Paris Campbell. He had 9 targets, put up a decent week for the Colts. Proved to be a pretty solid target for Phillip Rivers. He had 6 catches on 9 targets for 71 yards, and he did have a tackle too to throw it in there. He also had a carry too for 9 yards, which is nice to see him getting that. He's kind of one of those multi-tool
or receivers.
So, and then T.Y. Hilton, kind of disappointing. Also had 9 targets, 4 receptions, 53 yards. I do think that it's not going to get too... I'm worried for T.Y., to be honest.
What's your main worry for him? Are you more worried that his problem this week was he wasn't able to come down with the ball or just be around the ball?
My issue is Phillip Rivers' wet noodle arm for him, because he is an over-the-top receiver. And he does have those explosive big plays. Phillip Rivers just can't get it to him like that. If they can find a way to get him the ball in other ways, then I think he'll, be better. But I think he should. I think he should have played the defense that they played. He should have had a better game. But I'm glad that he got those targets at least. So definitely a part of the offense.
It shows that they're trying to get it to him. So that's at least nice. And again, great pickup on that Nyheim Hines. Glad we grabbed him like we said we were going to when we were talking about waivers last week.
Mm-hmm. So, moving on to the Packers-Vikings game. Aaron Rodgers threw it everywhere. He threw it to me even. I caught a pass.
Did you catch it in the end zone?
Yep.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So, 43-34, Packers whooped up on the Vikings. Score doesn't really show it, but the Aaron Rodgers threw for 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. Everybody get a touchdown. You get a touchdown. You get a touchdown. You get a touchdown. Devontae Adams balled. Aaron Jones had 16 carries, 66 yards, and a touchdown. So a solid game for him. He also had 6 targets as well. Marquez Valdez-Scantling put up numbers, almost 100 yards and a touchdown. Alan Lazard put up 63 yards and a touchdown. So, and those guys are both, MVS and Alan Lazard are on waiver wires. Pretty solid waiver wire pickups. The Vikings secondary isn't the best, but with the Packers slinging it like they were today, I would love to have a piece of that offense. MVS is owned in 1.9% of leagues, and Alan Lazard is owned in 25% of the leagues around. So pick both of those guys up if you have the opportunity. You definitely want a piece of that. And like I said, Aaron Jones starting off strong. Had that touchdown, which he kind of was dependent upon last year. So get in there. Oh, no. I thought Derrick Henry got in. But moving on to the Vikings, Kirk Cousins looked not great.
No, Kirk Cousins looked pretty terrible, honestly. It was really hard for him to find the end zone. He was able to get in there twice, but did throw an absolutely nasty pick, and just the flow of the game was not going well. Something that was really interesting to me was that the Green Bay Packers had 72 offensive downs, while the Minnesota Vikings only had 46, meaning there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for the Vikings to even put up fantasy points, even regular points. So they did pretty efficiently for the drives that they had.
Mm-hmm.
It was just about turnovers and third down conversions for them. Dalvin Cook only receiving 12 carries, and 2 receiving targets. Luckily, he got those 2 touchdowns in to make his day where his point spread should be. Madison getting 6 carries and 4 targets shows to me, at least with both of them healthy, I think that this is going to be more of a time split shared backfield than a pure Dalvin Cook backfield like we were seeing more and more last season while he was healthy. Madison's someone who proved that he's got value in himself, and I think that they're just going to keep being that 1-2 punch. With the lack of receivers on that team, I think they're going to rely a lot on their run game, even more than before. But relying on those receivers kind of worked for him a little bit. I mean, Adam Thielen was able to find the end zone twice on 8 targets, 6 receptions, and 110 yards. Adam Thielen was an absolute monster this week, someone that a lot of people were sleeping on and a lot of people did not want to grab because they were afraid of what was going to happen to him, and they missed out.
Yeah, definitely. They've got a pretty tough matchup coming up. They play the Colts, and it's going to be like a little – the Colts should have won, the Vikings should have won. So, I mean,
was going to say, the matchup doesn't look too bad if you've got Keelan Cole putting up 60 yards against you.
Yeah, you're right. So, but moving on to the Dolphins at the Patriots. Cam Newton. That's all we need to say about that. Have a good day.
That is the offense. He was the offense. Go
ahead. No.
Sorry, he had more rushing attempts than anyone else on the team, and was absolutely efficient with it. Running into the end zone twice for 75 yards. As well as completing 15 of his 19 passing attempts for 155 yards. No one on that team was really getting a large enough share of that backfield to make themselves usable. A lot of almost usable players. Sony Michel had 10 carries for 37 yards, a touchdown saving his butt, but not enough. Julian Edelman and N'Keal Harry, the only receivers to actually get a target throughout the entire game.
Wow.
So obviously not throwing the ball all the way around, but Julian Edelman getting his 7 targets, 5 catches, and N'Keal Harry going for 5 for 6, but with a fumble, which kind of scares you because there just seems to be question marks around him every week and every time he's in.
Yep. Dolphins, literally nobody did anything. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw to the other team more than he did to his team pretty much. 3 interceptions. And, it was pretty lackluster performance. Devontae Parker did go down with a hamstring injury, which really hurt that offense. He was on pace for a pretty good day. So hopefully they can get him back. But they've got a really tough matchup against the Bills this week. I don't like any of them playing this week. So, but Cam Newton, baby. That's
Cam Newton, absolutely.
Moving on to the Eagles at the Washington football team. The Eagles got upset 27-17. Carson Wentz looked like crap. He had 2 fumbles, and I apologize for making him one of my starts of the week. I will definitely rethink that anytime.
Well, be fair with it. He had a great first half. He was looking really good up until after the halftime.
Yeah.
Because I remember at one point you looked over at me and it was like, look at Carson Wentz. Things happen.
2 interceptions and a fumble.
Yeah, not good things, but turnovers happen. Again, not happy. I'm not going to be playing them. I told you that multiple times this weekend, but
that's why I have him ranked as my quarterback 22. I should have just followed my gut.
Follow your rankings. Follow our rankings. But absolutely terrible. Boston Scott, one of the major pickups, someone that was supposed to win everyone's week.
Nope.
Did nothing.
He can't. I don't think he can be that standalone back, and I think he needs Miles Sanders back. Once Miles Sanders comes back, I think he will have a pretty good, part of this role or of this offense. But I just don't think he was is going to be and has the ability to be a standalone back. Dallas Goedert led the team in targets, had a great fantasy day. Got in the end zone, did everything he wanted. He's owned in only 27.2% of leagues. Pick him up.
Absolute waiver wire pickup. As far as the receivers for the Eagles, no one did anything worth mention. No one was able to get any high receiving totals. Deshaun Jackson did get 7 targets, but that's really about it, only getting 2 of those tackles. Moving on to Washington, Dwayne Haskins barely finished worse than Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Only getting, 31 targets, 17 for 31, 178 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 7 carries for 17 yards. Not terrible. He didn't throw any interceptions, didn't fumble the ball. It's actually nice to see. He was able to bring his team to victory. As far as the running back room, Antonio Gibson was barely seen, only 9 carries for 36 yards, 2 targets with 2 receptions for 8, getting almost 25% of his total collegiate carries in one NFL game. So
Sweet.
I'm not really happy with it. I'm sorry, I was burping there. I was trying to hide that. But Peyton Barber did lead the running back room with 17 carries, only getting 29 yards, with 2 of those carries being 2-yard runs for touchdowns. So average yards per carry might not be the best thing to show for that there, but I like the fact that he's getting a huge portion of that. I'm not the hottest on Antonio Gibson, but I do think his role is going to be expanded as we go week to week.
I agree. Yeah, Peyton Barber, I think this is going to be the most carries he has all season, like in a game, 17. So I do think that Antonio, it was poor performance, but I do think that he is going to have his role expanded, and he was the most efficient runner in out of those 2 runners. So Terry McLaurin didn't have a great day, flexible day. 7 targets, 5 receptions for 61 yards, and I think that has to do with Dwayne Haskins. I'm glad they're getting the targets, but Dwayne just needs to step up. But overall, I can't believe they won.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Yeah.
A great second half.
Yeah.
The first half looked terrible. But going on to the next game, we have the Los Angeles Chargers going up against the Bengals. Joe Burrow's debut. And he didn't look great. He didn't look bad. Going 23 for 36, 193 yards with 1 interception, 8 carries for 46 yards with the rushing touchdown. That rushing touchdown was about, I believe, 24 yards. He looked really good on it, able to move using the blocker in front of him, but just not able to get any of his receivers into the end zone. Only lighting up A.J. Green 9 times, him catching 5 of those for 51 yards. Tyler Boyd and John Ross not getting too many targets, about 5 apiece, and not getting downfield. Most of the game coming from Joe Mixon's 19 carries for 69 yards with 1 reception on 2 targets. Kind of a bummer for anyone that picked up Joe Mixon this week.
And he has a fumble too.
And that fumble really hurts too. Gio Bernard finishing with 4 receptions on 5 targets, more than Joe Mixon got. Don't know what that means for anyone. Just hoping that maybe against someone that's not the San Diego Chargers defense, those running backs can get their stuff together. If Joe can get his receivers a little more open downfield, it should open up the safeties and the linebackers. You saw that he was able to throw downfield at the LSU. Just might take him a little bit to catch up to that NFL speed. Mm-hmm. The Chargers didn't come out looking much better. Nope. Tyrod Taylor.
He's going to be gone soon.
Tyrod Taylor is going to be another backup quarterback in the league coming here soon.
Almost a 50% completion.
Just over a 50% completion rating, 208 yards with 6 carries for 7 yards, barely getting over a yard per carry. Just against the Bengals defense,
yeah,
you can't really ask for much more from him.
Yeah, don't tilt on Austin Eckler. No,
he's going to be getting a new quarterback eventually.
Yeah, plus he had 19 carries, so he's a big part of the run game. And he also, oh no. Oh, good. Okay, I thought that was Melvin Gordon. He is a big part of the run game. So I do think that he will get that opportunity to expand in the receiving game as well. He only had 1 target for 1 reception. So don't tilt on him yet. I think he's up for a great season. I just think that Melvin Gordon is going to – I'm sorry. I'm watching the Broncos game.
Stop watching.
I think that Tyrod Taylor is going to be out as the quarterback here shortly, and they'll be getting the ball to Austin Eckler a lot more. Josh Kelly, great performance as well. Did get in the end zone, 12 carries, 60 yards. Pretty solid.
Yeah, pretty solid, 5 yards per carry.
Good waiver pickup to sit on your bench and see kind of how he progresses throughout the season.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as Austin Eckler goes, he did have over 4 yards per carry. Only thing really hurting him was he wasn't able to get into the end zone. He didn't have many receiving targets. Other than that, he would have been doing great.
I lost.
Okay.
Melvin Gordon gets in here.
All right, so as far as the receivers go, Mike Williams shocked the world and ends up playing week 1. Ended up leading the team in not only targets, but yards.
Yeah.
Tied Keenan Allen for total receptions. Keenan Allen only getting 8 targets. But I believe that with this quarterback change, that hopefully it's going to be coming soon, or maybe just a little bit more of the team getting their timing together. You hopefully can get some more. I'm going to be fading away from anyone on that team except Hunter Henry, who did get five receptions on 8 targets for 73 yards. Finished pretty decently this week in a PPR league. He finished as the tight end 10. Not terrible, not bad, but with that quarterback play, not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and Keenan Allen, don't tilt on him either. I think once they'll get it together. And if Herbert does come in, I think that may actually benefit him. There will be rookie mistakes, but Keenan Allen is one of those receivers that you can lean on and get the ball to, and I think that's what will happen there. So, moving on to the big game of the week, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. The Bucks got they looked great the first drive. They put up 23 points. Saints beat them 34-23. Tom Brady, 2 interceptions. One of those was a pick 6. He did have a rushing touchdown as well, and he also threw for 2 other touchdowns. Ronald Jones, running the ball, he looked pretty well. He didn't have the best average. I believe he averaged about 3.88 yards a carry. And Leonard Fournette wasn't used a ton. But I think as the season progresses, I think it'll slowly switch into Fournette's backfield. But I'm staying away from starting any of them. It's too much there for me personally. Chris Godwin, he had 7 targets, 6 receptions, 79 yards, and had a pretty respectable game, especially if you're playing in a PPR or half PPR league. And then Scotty Miller, you could tell Tom Brady really likes throwing to this guy. Threw to him 6 times. He caught 5 of those. He also had a rush for 6 yards, but he had 73 total yards. So if he's on your waiver wire, go pick him up. I picked him up in a few leagues right before this game because, there's been some whisperings, but he's only owned in 3.7% of leagues, which is nice. So pick him up. Mike Evans, not great. His only catch, was a touchdown, which kind of saved him if you started him. We've been saying all week, don't start him with that
injury designation.
So, I think that he'll Chris Godwin, I think, is going to be the main receiver in this team. We've been saying it all off season. And then Scotty Miller will be hogging up some targets there as well.
Yeah, I see Mike Evans as something I've said it before. Mike Evans is going to be a red zone threat. Someone that can be open in the end zone, is extremely talented, will be able to get there, but I think most of his points are going to be coming from those touchdowns. Someone else in that Buccaneers offense that showed out was O.J. Howard, getting four catches on 6 targets for 36 yards and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
That touchdown, absolutely great for him. Those 4 targets from Brady is beautiful. Got twice as many targets as Gronk and twice as many catches, with 3 times as many yards and infinitely many more touchdowns. So it's nice to see that O.J. Howard got a lot of love from Brady, even when Gronk is there. I hope that he's someone that we can find a lot of value in later in the season, as Gronk is someone that's coming off of a year off. Mm-hmm. Maybe isn't feeling himself.
But yeah, Gronk's not Gronk at this point. Drew Brees didn't do too well for he only put up 160 yards. Typically, you're expecting him to be in the high 2s to 3s, putting up those high end finishes. But Mike Thomas didn't really show up. Alvin Kamara did really well though. Not on carry wise, but scoring. He did have 8 receptions, 8 targets, 5 receptions for 51 yards, and in a receiving touchdown. He also had a rushing touchdown, but he only had 16 rushing yards on 12 carries. But overall, a solid performance fantasy wise from Alvin Kamara, and I only think that those rushing totals go up. As far as yardage, the Buccaneers do have a solid defensive line. Emmanuel Sanders led the receiving corps in fantasy points. Also, he had a touchdown, which was nice for him.
Yeah, that's what pushed him over. I mean, he had the exact same stat line as Michael Thomas, minus 2 yards. Without that touchdown, just put him over. But both the Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas only getting 5 targets apiece. Terrible, actually.
Yeah,
Jared Cook did finish with 7 targets, got 5 catches for 80 yards.
Solid.
Very deep, very solid. You give him a touchdown, you're looking at a high-end tight end one, whereas right now you're looking at like a mid-range tight end one.
Yep. So don't tilt off Mike Thomas. See what happens with that ankle. Jared Cook, he's going to get those touchdowns as well. So definitely a solid start there. Moving on to another upset. We had quite a bit of upsets. Arizona at San Fran. Arizona beat San Fran 24-20. Kyler Murray balled. He had a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown. He did have an interception, but he ran for 91 yards, leading all quarterbacks this week. Kenyon Drake, he got in the end zone, which helped him. 16 carries, 60 yards. You okay over there?
Yeah.
Okay. 16 carries, 60 yards, a touchdown, and 2 receptions. But Chase Edmonds also had a pretty solid day, all things considered. He did carry the ball 6 times for 26 yards. He did have 5 targets and 3 receptions for 19 yards and a receiving touchdown. I think that this is going to be a little bit more of a split backfield, maybe not in the run game, but I think Chase Edmonds is going to be getting on the field quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, they did, again, like you just said, not a split backfield, but definitely a shared backfield and just not Kenyon's full workload, which is something we've seen. Kenyon obviously had that foot injury going on at camp this year, so something to pay attention to. I think Kyler Murray is actually going to be that primary runner for that offense, with DeAndre Hopkins just lighting up the field and showing that he was worth that trade and that they got the better end of it. I mean, he got 14 catches on 16 targets for 151 yards and a tackle.
Yeah.
Great for him. Great game. Just kind of took away everything from everyone else. No one else on the team finished with more than 5 targets. Larry Fitzgerald did get 4 catches on that, though.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as the San Francisco 49ers, that sad upset, Jimmy Garoppolo had a decent game, especially for a streaming quarterback, going 19 for 33 for 259 yards. Did get 2 passing touchdowns and 1 carry for 9 yards. Most of the success for that team did come from Raheem Mostert, getting 15 carries for 56 yards, with Tevin Coleman only getting 4 carries and 2 targets.
Yeah.
And that was due to apparently some air quality issues going on in the Arizona area. Tevin Coleman was possibly going to miss the entire game. It looks like they did get him in there a little bit. But with Raheem starting, a lot of people moved him quickly right into that position, knowing that he can handle that workload, and he balled out.
Also, he had 95 receiving yards.
95 receiving yards and a long touchdown. And then right behind him was Jerick McKinnon, only on 3 carries and 24 yards. Did find himself another receiving touchdown, 20 yards on 3 catches with 5 targets. All of the receivers on that team, absolutely useless, totaling 16 targets between your receivers. The only other person with any sort of relevance before he left the field was George Kittle. Only getting 5 targets.
Yeah.
And ending with 44 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Not terrible for him. Hopefully he comes back healthy and comes back soon.
Yep. I hope so, because he is a baller. Moving on to the Rams and Cowboys game. The Rams beat the Cowboys, christening their new stadium 20-17. Dak Prescott did not look like Dak Prescott, and one of the reasons why is because his offensive line was just getting manhandled by the Rams. He had no time. Really, all they could do was run the ball with Zeke, get the ball to Zeke. Zeke had 22 carries for 96 yards and a touchdown. He also had 4 receptions for 31 yards and a touchdown. So this offense, last night at least, it had to run through Zeke because that's really all they could do. It's crazy because Dallas is known for their offensive line, but this D-line of the Rams is just Aaron Donald.
Dallas did lose their perennial Pro Bowl center this offseason, Fredericks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it wasn't just him. Like, it wasn't just Fredericks or the center that was getting manhandled. I mean, I'm talking the left.
Martin.
Zach Martin was getting.
Yeah, no. They were up against Aaron Donald.
Exactly.
But when you have Fredericks and Martin next to each other, Aaron Donald becomes not a threat, but less slightly of a threat. I mean, he's still going to make plays.
They were getting manhandled.
But yeah, they were getting worked out there. But surprisingly, Amari Cooper was the target leader as far as the receivers go, with 14 targets, 10 catches for 81 yards. And Michael Gallup was actually that's CeeDee Lamb as the number 2 target.
It's
1, but it counts. CeeDee Lamb is the number 2 target leader on the receivers for Dallas.
And had
finishing with
that
59
pass
yards.
interference not been a pass interference,
Had Michael Gallup not pushed off and just taken that extra step that he was
didn't,
already
though.
in front of,
So-
he would have been fine.
anyways,
And it
Blake
could have even gone for a
Jarwin,
touchdown.
Blake Jarwin, unfortunately, like we said, tore his ACL. It was super unfortunate. Dalton Schultz, he had 4 targets, but like we said, we're not going to bother with him. Going to the Rams side, Jared Goff had a meh fantasy finish. He didn't throw a touchdown. He did have 275 yards, but he did throw an interception, unfortunately. But Malcolm Brown had a great game for the Rams. He kind of did this last year where he broke out in the beginning of the year, first week, put up a good amount of points. And everybody flocked to the waivers for him. I'm not really going to this year. If you can get him for cheap fab, then do it. But I think that this backfield is kind of too convoluted to really go after him. I think Nyheim Hines, if he's there, is going to be the best fantasy or the best waiver option.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
And then Robert Woods, man, he was all over the field last night. He had 8 targets, 6 receptions, 105 yards, and a carry for 14 yards. They were trying to get him the ball every time they turned around. Had a great fantasy finish. And then Cooper Kupp, a subpar. You weren't really happy with it, especially for where you drafted him. But I do think that as the season progresses, don't tilt on him. He's also going to get involved in that offense.
Yeah, really happy for Robert Woods. Love to see that he's getting those 8 targets. I do think Cooper Kupp's going to be getting some more, but something you do see him thrive from is those yards after catch. So as we see him get into some games and get some more open field, you should see those point totals going up for him too. Mm-hmm. He's going to be really alive in this offense, especially if Jared Goff can finally wake up.
Yep. And then Tyler Higbee wasn't the showing that we wanted. Only had 4 targets, 3 receptions for 40 yards. Robert Woods was really getting the ball all night, so I think that kind of hurt him a lot, as well as Gerald Everett being on the field. So he'll get his targets. I don't think he's going to be as productive as he was last year, but he will give you some solid fantasy relevant weeks. So moving on to our last game. That was the game we just finished. That is Pittsburgh versus New York. Pittsburgh went out to New York, beat them 26-16. Ben Roethlisberger put up a solid fantasy finish. He threw for 229 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 carries for 9 yards. He's got wheels now. He hurt the elbow. Now he's got wheels. But he finished as the quarterback 8 this week. Benny Snell looked great after James Conner went down, rushing for 113 yards. He's another pickup. I think I'd rather have him than Malcolm Brown, Benny Snell. For me, especially depending upon. You don't think so?
No,
I do.
James Conner's got a sprained ankle. If he comes back, and James Conner's going to be coming back and taking the bulk load of that offense. Even if he gets hurt again this season when he comes back, Benny Snell's going to be sitting or not getting a huge workload. Malcolm Brown was more efficient than Cam Akers was this week.
Oh yeah,
by a buttload.
And Darrell Henderson was hurt.
And Darrell Henderson still played.
Yeah, he played, but he was banged up.
Banged up. But I think they did, like they said, they were going to ride the hot hand. And I think they found last week Malcolm Brown was the hot hand. Those touchdowns just kind of the thing that's holding me back from really committing to it. But Benny Snell did show that he's a baller. I mean, 19 carries for 113 yards is absolutely great. Mm-hmm. You really can't ask for a lot more from a running back.
Yep. So Deontay Johnson, he had the targets, just wasn't catching them. There were a few miscommunications there between him and Big Ben. But overall had, he did have the fumble too, which stunk. But he had he got in a half PPR league, 9.7 points. So if you put him in the flex, you're not happy, but you're not infuriated either. But I do like his target share, so could only go up from here. James Washington had a touchdown on 3 targets, so that helped him, with the fantasy finish as well. And neither of the tight ends there were really fantasy relevant at all. Eric Ebron or Vance McDonald. Both of them only had 2 targets. Moving on.
Don't tell me you're going to skip over Juju.
Oh, shoot. You're right.
You skipped. It's cool. You can just be quiet for this one. Obviously, something a lot of people were worried about moving into this year was what is Juju going to do now that Big Ben is back? And apparently, Juju is going to go 6 for 6 for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns week 1. Looked super efficient on the field. Just looked really good. Was running really good. Was getting that space. Was keeping himself open. Love to see it. Happy to see Juju. A lot of those things that make me fade away from him and be a little afraid of even grabbing him. I'm a little upset with myself now for doing that. I would love to have him on my team. I'm not expecting 2 touchdowns a week. I'm not expecting a touchdown a week. I'm expecting consistent targets, and I think that's what you're going to get from him. But surprisingly enough, I'm actually slightly more interested in the receiver on the other side of this scoreboard across from him.
Darius Slayton.
Darius Slayton showed that he did take the step up. Going 6 for 9, 6 catches for 9 on 9 targets, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Getting those 2 touchdowns, but not from Big Ben, but from Daniel Jones. I think that Darius Slayton found himself to be the primary target for Daniel Jones, and I think that it's going to be something you're going to continue to see. Golden Tate was out this week, but I think if anything, that's just going to open up the field more and not force Daniel Jones to throw the ball to his tight ends as often. Daniel Jones himself going 26 for 41, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, which really hurt him, and 4 carries for 22 yards. He looked pretty good. He had those 2. A couple of his carries were really nice. Hopefully, if he's not playing against the Steelers defense, which is one of the best defenses in the leagues, hopefully when he's not playing against a team like that, he'll be able to absolutely ball out. Saquon Barkley wasn't able to find the end zone today, barely able to get any pass work in. He got 6 catches on 9 targets for 60 yards. Mm-hmm. Decent work, but no, those touchdowns really do hurt him when it's Saquon Barkley and you're looking for those totals. Only able to get 6 yards on 15 carries.
Yeah.
So just not the offensive line that he needs to be running behind. So we'll have to see what happens with him.
Yep. So, anyways, overall, I think Darius Slayton, if you have him, you feel good about it right now. We have him in a few leagues, actually. A couple of our co-owns. So, overall, solid performance, especially against the defense they were going up against. Steelers are potentially, top 3 defense, trying to get that number 1 spot. But Evan Ingram didn't do too well either. He did have the targets. He had 7 targets on 2 receptions, 9 yards. So I do like that he got that target share. And he is a solid tight end and an athlete. So hopefully he can take that step forward, get those targets. But real quick, to give you guys a quick update, the game's not over. It's currently tied, or it's 14-13. The Broncos are winning. I believe they have the ball, but somebody to look out for on your waiver wires, Corey Davis. He's
3.9% owned at the moment. I'm assuming that's going to be shooting up as soon as tomorrow morning. So just make sure you guys check in on that. If he's on there, definitely someone you're going to want to look out for. He's been out-targeted by A.J. Brown by 2 targets at this point in the game. It's 3 minutes left in the game, so a little bit could happen.
And Drew Lock just missed a wide-open receiver in the end zone.
You act like he hasn't just won. He isn't leading the team to beating the Tennessee Titans right now.
Leading the team. I wouldn't say he's leading the team. I'd say Melvin Gordon's leading the team.
Okay.
So, anyways, keep an eye out for him. Jonnu Smith, he's also having a pretty solid day. He does have a touchdown, but he does have 7 targets, which is nice to see. And then, of course, Noah Fant balling right now. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown.
Able to get in there.
So Melvin Gordon, pretty respectable as well. 15 carries, 78 yards, 3 receptions for 8 yards. He did have a fumble, but he does have the touchdown, and it's not as 50-50 as we were thinking it was going to be between him and Phillip Lindsay. So, but overall, check those guys out. Derrick Henry's not doing great. He doesn't have the touchdown at least, which is hurting him at this point. Tannehill, not getting the carries like we would think. He does have 3, but only for 14 yards. 2 passing touchdowns though, which is nice. So, but anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that was our weekly recap. We're excited. Football is back. Let's get into our waiver wire pickups real quick. John, you want to start off with your favorite receivers?
Yeah, absolutely. So your biggest pickups this week for your receivers are going to be Russell Gage, 8.3% owned at the moment. Jamison Crowder, if he's available, he's currently 81% owned. If he's available, you're going to want to grab him and just throw him in the roster. Best flex play I could think of at the moment. John Brown, someone else like that, high upside, low floor, but could have huge games. 71% owned right now. Anthony Miller, 17%, was shown really great for that number 2 for the Bears wide receivers. And then Alan Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yes, good job.
Alan Lazard going at 25% and MVS going at 2.7%. Both of them possible number 2 receivers behind Devontae Adams.
Yep, definitely. Come on, Derek. I need you. Running backs, Nyheim Hines, like we said, probably the biggest pickup. He is owned in 34.2%, so, pretty decently owned. But if he's not, the majority of the leagues, he's not. Pick him up. Josh Kelly, 11.3%. Chase Edmonds, 36.2% as well. Malcolm Brown, 7.9%. And then Benny Snell is only owned in 14.6% of leagues. So those are some of our targets. They'll definitely... Naeem will definitely have, I think, a role, a flexible option in the coming weeks. The other guys, I think it's going to be matchup dependent. And depending on what Connor, his injury, Benny Snell could be the starter there. But pay attention in the next episode. We'll keep you updated on that. Tight ends, real quick. TJ Hawkinson, he's owned in quite a bit of leagues. He's owned in 71.9%. But if he's not, pick him up. He had a solid week, and especially with Kenny Golladay out, he's, kind of stepping into his own. Dallas Goedert, owned in 27.2% of leagues. And then he balled out this week, and I think he's going to continue to do so, especially with the limited wide receiver options there in Philadelphia. And then O.J. Howard, 4.9%, great streaming option. And he's that team's tight end 100%.
Yeah, just make sure you guys are looking at his injury designation because of what happened. And if you guys need to pick up any quarterbacks, someone I'm really happy to pick up right now is going to be Mitch Trubisky. I'm just kidding. Actually, Gardner Minshew at 14.9% owned. I believe that he's someone who could have huge upside. It's going to be someone you're going to want on your bench to see if he can continue to be as effective as he has been. But if not, oh well. If you really need to take a risk and you're in a really deep league, possibly Mitch Trubisky. Like we said earlier, he's been a Pro Bowler. 1 year out, he could have just had one bad season. I'm not taking that risk on him unless I just have empty roster spot or it's like I said, a super deep league. I know everyone hates him, so it's someone that I guarantee hasn't been rostered, only at 2.7%. He should be on most of your waivers. Deep leagues only, unless he continues to prove himself. But very happy to see it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, though. Really happy to update you guys with what happened this Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's been good.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that really showed out, especially with it being such a short camp period and it being week 1. And can't wait to see what the season holds, who else is going to emerge, and who else will we write about.
Yeah, definitely. So real quick, let's get into our beer of the day. So it's called the Vanilla Porter by Breckenridge Brewery out of Colorado. Pretty good. Pretty good for a porter. I'm not a big porter guy, but the Breckenridge Brewery opened its doors in 1990. They are, I believe, so they are approaching 60,000 barrels a year in beer, which is crazy. 1992, they opened their second brew pub in downtown Denver. Their first was in Breckenridge, Colorado. And then in 95, it's pretty cool. The Colorado Rockies built their stadium right across the street from their brew pub. So kind of got them out there, got their name out there. In the summer of 2015, they built a 12-acre kind of production home for them. Nice. Pretty cool if you look at their website. Like, it's kind of neat, all Beautiful. The architecture and stuff. Mountains in the background and such. Visit their website. Colorado. Yeah, I love Colorado. Visit their website, beckbrew.com, and you can check it out. They currently have 2 locations, one in Breckenridge and one in Littleton. But overall, I think the beer is a pretty. It's an okay beer. Like I said, I'm not a porter guy. But John, you want to give? Actually, before you get into the beer notes, just wanted to point out on the can, you see the. I'm expecting those or assuming those are the Rockies. In the background with some nice trees and such, but it's got a cool little vanilla flower on it. I believe, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, with some vanilla bean pods on the side of it.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, this is not a porter guy either. As we know, I'm more of a sour. I like my sweets and sours. But I did really like this one. I thought it was pretty good. Something I could definitely drink again. Mainly probably due to that low IBU that it has. Coming in at 5.4% and an IBU of 16, it is pretty sweet. Not a lot of bitterness to it. It does pack a modest punch. It's brewed with Chinook, Palladice, Perry, and Golding hops and malted with 2-roll pale, caramel, Bonlander, black, and roasted barley. I did enjoy it. I do smell. It does have a nice little caramel, vanilla / barley aroma all mixed into it. That sweetness from the vanilla does carry through very well. Kind of hits pretty strong, but then mellows out towards the end. But I really did enjoy this one. I'm not too upset with it. Not something I'd go buy again, but if I saw it and it was offered to me, I'm going to drink it.
Sweet.
Yeah. So personally, I think I'm going to give this one I don't know, I'm thinking like a 6.4.
Wow, very close. I'm going to give it a 6.2.
Okay.
Not great, not good, or not great, not bad.
Not bad.
But just, I mean, yeah. Like I said, I'm not a porter guy though, but it's decent. If you're into porters, you'd probably like it. So, but anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That was our weekend recap. Sorry it took so long. There's a lot of games, but we will be, narrowing it down and fine-tuning our skills as the time goes on. So if you have any recommendations on any segments we should do, please let us know. We'd love to hear about it. But tune in on Thursday for our Thursday night preview, the morning of, and
as well as some starts of the week. Just a nice little preview of the week, just to say the least.
Yep.
But we will be reaching out to you guys and letting you know what's going on. Please, again, make sure to send us any of your beer reviews, beer updates, any beers you guys want us to review. Start-sit questions are happening. We are doing a Sunday live stream for start-sits, as well as any roster questions that you may have. It's been really great having you guys here.
You guys have been awesome.
And if you guys do want to, send anything to us as far as those beer reviews, you're going to send it to @thefantasytap on Twitter and Instagram, and thefantasytap.com if you guys want to send us to it in a little email.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Football's back. I hope you all got them dubs this week. Love you guys.